everyone. In this video, I'm going to be going over the 2023 yearly predictions book, the Bitcoin and ETH yearly predictions book for 2023, and look at the predictions that I got right and also the time frames that I was not quite accurate on, and very importantly about what I see coming up in relation to my predictions books. The predictions, I hold to them. However, there's one slight modification about when the next kind of cycle is going to start. So please do watch this all the way through. I'll try and make timestamps for when I get into different parts of this. Okay, so first let's go through the predictions in the book. The 2023 yearly predictions book begins with a prediction that the 3rd and 4th of January would send BTC and Ether up respectively. That was correct. Please also note that in a tweet dated the 22nd of December of 2022, I stated that the Bitcoin price bottom was already in, referring to the 15,476 low that BTC price had dropped to on Monday the 21st of November of 2022. So far that holds to be true. I'm pretty sure that it will also. Next, I predicted that January 10th through to the 12th would show the onset of further upward momentum for Bitcoin and Ether. That was correct. Next, I predicted that January 16th would foreshadow a down move that would only become clear on February 2nd. Furthermore, I stated that on the 17th and the 18th, it would show a price bounce and a deceptive up move would be happening. I then went on to predict that the 22nd of January would send Bitcoin price up again deceptively. That was correct. Notice that both of those sets of dates where I mentioned a deceptive up move, we see it start with a consolidation. Consolidations occur when the collective consciousness understands that there is something pending. It shows an uncertainty which breaks out into a direction which will then be reversed in the near future. Next comes Chapter 2 of my book, titled Chapter 2, Serious Bear Territory Begins. I first predict that on January 27th, a price drop would initiate for both Bitcoin and Ether, and furthermore that on the 29th, an upward bounce would initiate. But then, that beginning on February 2nd, a significant downtrend would initiate. That was correct. I also warned that there would be an upward bounce from February 6th through to the 8th, but that starting on the 8th, the downtrend would continue. That was also correct. Next, I predicted that on February 13th, there would be a down move, but my prediction was more accurate for Ether than it was for Bitcoin. This is because I thought that the down move for Bitcoin would only correct up for one day on the 15th, whereas for ETH, I correctly called that the 13th would be a low and then that price would start a more sustained upward bounce. This is a great moment to tell you all that I have noticed from this year's prediction books for Bitcoin and Ether that this year, sometimes I've predicted something for ETH which then led both Ether and Bitcoin price. In the past, Bitcoin clearly led price action for the whole market. But this year, ETH has often taken the lead. However, with that being said, my next prediction for February 16th was specific to Ether, and in fact, the Ether price chart responded distinctly to the Bitcoin chart, as per my prediction. On this day, I predicted that Ether specifically would start a punctual drop, which it did, while Bitcoin did not. Notice on the charts that Ether fell from a local top on this date, whereas Bitcoin retested that top some days later on the 21st. ETH did not. Then I predicted that from February 18th through to the 22nd, we would see drops for both Bitcoin and Ether. But interestingly, I focused on Ether and did not mention Bitcoin. And in fact, this came to pass, ETH continuing its downtrend, whereas Bitcoin retesting as previously mentioned. So that was correct. Next, for March 2nd, I predicted that Bitcoin would fall, whereas Ether would have a punctual upward spike before continuing to fall. Indeed, Ether spiked up and fell on the next daily candle, whereas Bitcoin did not spike, it just fell. I mention every time I send out these books that my books are in Newfoundland time. Okay? So anyway, so you see that this is why I make two books, as high net worth spot traders can probably take advantage of such differences, and I work with the natal charts of each of these two coins, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I have been doing so for the past 5 years. So that's how I'm able to notice these fine details of difference. Okay. However, as I mentioned, the industry is shifting and Ether is starting to hold more weight in its natal chart and how that pulls Bitcoin along with it sometimes. Okay. So next I predicted that Bitcoin specifically would begin an upward correction on March 9th. And indeed, Bitcoin did start climbing the next day. So that was off by a day, but Friday the 10th, after hitting the local bottom. So if you're a trader, you should know that. So I may make a prediction, but the price may need to test a local bottom or a local top or a retest zone before that takes effect, because we work with time, which is what I guide you on, but we also work with hitting certain price targets. So those two things are in play at any given moment. So anyway, that's what happened there. So then I predicted that Ether would fall on the 11th of February, the 11th of March, and Bitcoin on the 12th. And this was incorrect. And in fact, although this time frame is included in my chapter titled Chapter 2, Serious Bear Territory Begins, this is actually when the price initiated a climb that would take it out of the bear territory. So basically this moment when Mars entered into Gemini shifted the bear into the territory of a bullish recovery, which I did not anticipate or predict. I thought that we would continue in actually bearish territory with punctual upward corrections, but instead the upward corrections that I forecasted correctly around this time were part of a general upward trend, which on Friday, March 10th, took us off of the low of $19,549 for Bitcoin, to which we never returned. So what I'm saying is, there I was making some predictions about the movements, but I was incorrect about the trend. Okay, that's important for what I'm going to tell you later, but let's go a little bit more into this. For Ether, I then predicted price jumps, again jumps, not the trend change. That's where I went wrong there. For ETH, specifically on March 14th and March 17th, which did come to pass, but they happened for both Bitcoin and Ether, and again, they were not upward corrections like I predicted. They weren't upward bounces. Instead, they were part of a new upward trend that initiated on March 10th. Then on March 20th and March 23rd, I predicted a drop for Ether. And although there was an initial red candle on the 20th, the second prediction was right on, as the drop initiated that day on the 23rd. I also predicted Ether falling on March 28th and March 30th, but these were simply incorrect. And then I predicted a drop for Bitcoin and Ether on April 2nd, and indeed there was a drop. Next, on April 6th is where I begin the next chapter, called Chapter 3, Pre-Bull. Although on April 6th, a sustained upward thrust did begin as predicted, the real pre-bull had begun when Mars entered Gemini on March 10th, not on this date. So understand that I stated that the pre-bull was starting April 6th. Really, please understand the pre-bull started when Mars entered Gemini on March 10th. Okay, so now next. I predicted powerful upswings all the way through to April 17th. However, the top was not hit on the 17th, but rather on the 14th. On April 14th, I thought that the price would continue up when Sun entered into Aries, but it did not. In fact, that's exactly when it started to fall. So I was a few days off on that. Nonetheless, my predictions for a drop on the 17th and the 19th did show large red candles and, of course, a continuation of the drop that began on the 14th. And may I just say, as I'm sure a lot of you who are watching already feel this way, probably, but more people need to understand this, that astrologers like myself, I see what people say on CNBC and Bloomberg and everything, and I know that I have a higher accuracy rate than these people, and I'm sure other financial astrologers do too. So it's interesting because we need to evolve to the point where this is part of the mainstream, because I'm more accurate and so are other financial astrologers, I'm sure. But anyway, okay, let's continue. Next, on Friday, April 21st, when Jupiter would enter into Aries, is where I began the chapter 4 bull run. But the bull run did not start. Instead, although we saw that Jupiter's entrance into Aries did cause upward momentum, and that's very important, as well as on Monday, April 24th, when Sun and Rahu coincided, also caused upward momentum, both as per my prediction. This did not initiate a bull run at all. So, I hope you're following. So furthermore, and quite importantly, my next two predictions that on May 1st and May 6th the price would rise were incorrect. But here let's go into this, because these errors are very important, because they tell me what's going to happen in the future. So let me explain. On May 1st, Mercury, so May 1st was that date I got wrong, right? Because I said that price would rise on May 1st. It didn't. May 1st, Mercury retrograded past the Sun, and Bitcoin fell instead of going up as per my prediction. So I was wrong there. And on May 6th, Ether led a price drop for both coins. When Mercury started approaching Rahu in the sky after having hit a key transit point in the Ethereum natal chart. Also the opposite of what I had predicted. Okay, but this is important because it shows that Mercury the messenger was taking a message from Sun, the government, to Rahu, who is often thought of as unwieldy and rebellious. And I will come back to this in a bit when I tell you what I predict for the rest of the year, but please keep that in mind. But first, let's go back to my book. In the book, I next predicted that when Mars entered Cancer on May 10th, Ether would start moving down, and then when Mercury turned direct on the 15th, both Bitcoin and Ether would start falling. These 2 days did indeed show local tops for both coins. Now, Chapter 5, A Stronger Bull, begins with my prediction that starting on Wednesday, May 17th, we would see a series of upward movements for both coins which lasted through to mid-June. Instead, there has been a sideways consolidation which has included some important retests. Now, as you know if you have my book, my Chapter 6, A Price Reversal Downwards, Chapter 6, A Price Reversal Downwards, begins on Wednesday, June 14th. Coming up soon. I hold to this prediction. I see that from now through to Wednesday, June 17th, we will have some upward recovery. But then beginning on June 17th, so that's the date I mentioned in the book for Bitcoin specifically, but Ether will start dropping and might not recover, might not bounce up from now until the 17th, okay? But so what I said in the book and what I still hold to is that beginning on June 17th, after Bitcoin is likely to rebound between now and then, but then June 17th, we start falling again. However, this fall will not last for long. And here is where I need to alert you to an important modification of my yearly predictions. I hold to my yearly predictions book. However, you notice, if you have the book, that I say that beginning on July 1st for Ether and then July 3rd for Bitcoin, although we are still in the price reversal chapter, I predicted that an upward recovery would initiate. So you'll be able to see that if you look through. But I now note that on July 1st, Mercury will pass the Sun in Gemini. I see that this is going to create a sustained upward movement, taking us out of the downward trend completely. This is because this moment ends the cycle that began at the beginning of May when Mercury retrograded from Sun towards Rahu in Aries, initiating a period of regulatory stress on the industry and a downward consolidation, which I mentioned earlier. That's why I mentioned it with importance, with emphasis. So when Mercury passes Sun in Gemini on July 1st, it's going to end that cycle. And this will create an upward recovery for both Bitcoin and Ether price. However, if you're interested in smaller movements, then please consult the dates in the book. So here I'm just mentioning that the upward recovery beginning July 1st, which I predict in the book, will be more is going to be more important in causing a directional change in the larger trend. So this is an important turning point, and that's a modification to the way that I laid out that book, okay? So although this will not be immediately apparent, this moment will be the beginning of a bull run, which intensifies around the 2024 halving event. And you can read more about that in the Bitcoin by 2026 book, where I talk about the larger Bitcoin price cycle. So for those of you who have that book, basically, those of you who have the yearly prediction book, basically I hold by the rest of the predictions in the book, completely hold to all of them, with the only change being that the upward recovery that I mentioned occurring beginning on July 1st is going to be much more significant than I had noted in the book, okay? Creating a directional change that's going to take us towards the second wave of the bull run, which will begin around the 2024 Bitcoin halving. So that's all for now, and I hope this was good information for you, and okay. Thank you.